Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Roll call.
Ryan.
Here.
Here.
McCarty.
Here.
Parsonson.
Here.
Madigan. Here. Turner.
Here.
Chairwoman Henning is absent.
Okay. Any announcements and correspondence?
Again, as I advised you, Mr. Chairperson, the second case on this agenda, the proposed cannabis facility for 510 Main Street. Just for the record, the applicant has requested that be continued to the next meeting in February. So just for the record. So I just wanted to announce that, make that an announcement just in case there's anybody here who would like to review that, be for open comments. That case, for the record, is being continued pursuant to the request by the applicant to our February meeting 2023. Other than that, I have no other announcements.
Thank you. Okay. Approval of the December 7th Planning and Zoning Board meeting as presented. Is there a motion?
Minutes.
Minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Second. Okay. Roll call.
Ryan.
Yes.
Abstain.
McCarty.
Yes.
Parsonson. Yes. Madigan.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Chairwoman Henning.
Okay. Do we have any public comments at this time? Okay.
First case.
Okay, this is new business. This would be the BZB 22-10, consideration of a concept plan for a Wildcat renewable solar farm located on North Avenue, east of Depot Lake Road, commonly known as 650 East North Avenue.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this matter comes before you this evening on the applicant's request for a concept plan for the property commonly known as 650 East North Avenue. The property, the applicant's Wildcats Renewables LLC. The proposed existing zoning is estate, and pursuant to the village's comp plan, the area is identified as low density residential. The applicant is coming before you this evening on a concept plan for a proposed 20-acre solar farm on approximately 51-acre site. They're proposing to use roughly half of that site, a little more than 20 acres of the 51 acres. The property, for context, is on North Avenue, just basically east of Deep Lake Road. Again, the currently property is vacant, being used for agricultural purposes as we speak. The applicant is required, in accordance with our village's ordinance, for the state district solar farms are identified as a special use. So theoretically, if there is any support for this concept, the applicant would come before you again with a proposed special use and potentially a site plan review. Again, this is a concept plan. Just to reiterate, a concept plan is generally just a general discussion of whether theoretically the Planning Commission is generally comfortable with the overall use. What's not being considered this evening is actually any type of preliminary engineering, architectural, landscape plans. If there's support for this concept, somewhere down the road, the applicant would be required to submit a special use. They would need to come in with a landscape plan. At that point in time, we would have a more extensive discussion about landscaping, buffering, privacy fences, all those details that we always get into. That would be at the second phase if the applicant would proceed with special use. So again, generally for this evening, the applicant is generally looking for feedback of whether the Planning Commission is comfortable with the general use. As I've already identified, the state district does allow or identify a solar farm as a special use. Consistent with the village's numerous land use documents, sustainability has also been identified as one of the goals from a future land use perspective. Obviously, with the growing consensus about needs for sustainable approaches, that the applicant thought it'd be appropriate to come in before the Planning Commission for this proposed concept for a 21-acre proposed solar farm. Again, there will be a balance of approximately 31 acres of the balance of the property, which would again be undeveloped. And what the future use of that property would be is really not up for discussion per se this evening. Again, for the record, the applicant's only proposing to use approximately 21 acres of this approximate 50-acre site. Again, the proposed solar farm shall generate approximately 2.8 megawatts of electricity, which will be interconnected to the ComEd electrical distribution system. Based on discussions with the applicant, this proposed 2.8 megawatts, that this proposed 21-acre solar farm would have the ability to generate enough energy or electricity for approximately 500 homes. So if you use the average median household is approximately 3 people in Antioch. So approximately theoretically, this proposed solar farm would generate enough electricity for approximately 1,500 people, or approximately 10% of the village's population. Again, this proposal provides the village the opportunity to embrace renewable energies and green energies really for the first time. There has been more and more interest, as you well know, in solar farms and solar energy. So the applicant wanted to propose this concept before you this evening. Again, specifically, the proposed farm itself would incorporate 7,140 solar modules. I'm going to allow the applicant to kind of walk through the specifics and kind of walk you through the actual parameters of those modules and talk about all the specifics about this proposed solar farm. I've identified that there will be the solar panels would actually be installed on a series of steel racking systems. And again, the applicant will have an opportunity to provide you a general outline of how those racking systems work, but they would just generally be within the 21-acre farm. The proposed 21-acre solar farm would be secured by a security fence. The applicant has identified a 15-foot high height of these solar panels. Again, I'm going to allow the applicant to kind of walk you through the exact design of all these solar modules. As I've already identified, the subject site is currently being used for agricultural purposes. It's been identified in the comp plan as low density. There currently are no utilities to this site. There's no currently sanitary or water that services the site. So any future residential development would probably have to be on either well and septic, or there would have to be an extensive extension of the village utilities. Currently, village's utilities are at least probably a quarter or half a mile away up on North Avenue. So there's some substantial distance where existing utilities are. There's also some village utilities down on Deep Lake Road and Depot Street. So again, to reiterate, there are really no existing or utilities which are adjacent to this property. That's something to keep in mind. Obviously, whenever you're considering a planning case, you're also trying to look for what's the best use of the property, what's the highest and best use of the property. So that, again, for the record, the comp plan does identify the property as low density, which is approximately 1 unit per acre. Again, the applicant's identifying this property for a 21-acre solar farm. The property will be leased by the current existing owner to this end user. So staff has identified several questions that should be considered by the Planning Commission this evening. Would the proposed solar farm have any negative impact on surrounding property values? Are there ways to mitigate those potential negative impacts by incorporating either additional landscaping or buffering or berming? Those are some of the things that maybe could be discussed or considered this evening. How would the balance of the 51-acre site be used, specifically the 31-acre site? Would this proposed 21-acre solar farm have a negative impact, which would prohibit any potential future use of the balance of the property? Specifically, is there any negative impact on the habitat of the area? related to natural resources because of the solar farm. What is the potential issues with solar panel waste? There has been some discussion about that, how are solar panels recycled, and theoretically the applicant will have an opportunity to discuss that. Is the proposed use the highest and best use of the subject site? And finally, will the solar farm have any negative impacts on future residential development opportunities along North Avenue in this area? As this, again, the comp plan does identify this area along North Avenue or State Line Road as being low density residential in the future. So staff believes that many of the potential negative externalities that would theoretically might result from this solar farm could be fully mitigated. But again, we are looking for the general input of the Planning Commission on this proposed use and the general outlines of this proposed solar farm. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the applicant, who has a PowerPoint presentation with a lot more detail. So with that, I'm going to conclude my staff report. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jim Auld. I am site.
Sorry, did you sign in to the,
Sorry.
we have a sign-in sheet.
Sign in sheet, and also got to swear you in. Got to swear in for this type of.
Yes.
Yes.
Swear everyone in who's going to be providing testimony.
Okay.
Swear. Swear.
Yeah, we can for a moment. That's good. Mm-hmm.
I know.
Still have a quorum with 5 of us here.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna swear them in.
You want me to do it?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful.
Please raise your right hand. Sure. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Do.
Thank you. You are now sworn. Well, good evening. My name is Jim Auld, A-U-L-D, with Renewable Properties. I am site acquisition manager for our campaign in the state of Illinois. We're here, as Mr. Garrigan presented to you, to discuss our plan to develop property on East North Avenue, to develop 21 acres of a 51-acre parcel owned by Green Holdings to develop a community solar facility. So basically, I put together a PowerPoint presentation to give you an idea of what we plan to do. And I was hoping that we would be able to get some feedback from you this evening to proceed, to move forward to the special use portion of the process. So a little bit about, well, let me introduce my co-hosts here. We've got Gio Del Rivera, who is with PRC. They are our engineering and environmental team. We're working on the project, along with David Stryker, who is our land use for this project as well. Renewable properties. Well, first off, let me avoid confusion with tenants. Reading from the agenda, our application is with Wildcat, you know, that is our development entity. So we lease property under that entity, but it's all under the umbrella. Once the special use permit is obtained, interconnection with utilities obtained, we will then create a special entity for this site specific financing purpose on those solar sensors. So I just wanted to make sure you weren't confused by the things that are floating around. So the application right now will be under Wildcat because that's the entity is legal. But anyway, Renewable Properties was founded in 2017 by a gentleman by the name of Aaron Colleen. Aaron had well over 10 years of experience in solar development, all facets, financing, development, site acquisition, construction. He decided to venture out on his own. Was able to obtain some personal financing to start developing some sites out in California. And from that point on, making some significant hirings to the executive staff, we've been able to develop sites in 13 states to date. We're now up to 36 employees. We're headquartered in San Francisco. The summary of the contents of what we're going through, I kind of want to speak back of properties, talk about what is solar, get into more specific discussion on what projects will entail at the site, answer any questions that folks might have regarding that, and go from there. So, first slide is who we are. We are a national developer, financier, owner, and operator of community solar projects and storage projects throughout the country. Headquartered in San Francisco, we have 36 employees and growing. Our development pipeline right now is in excess of 650 megawatts across 13 states. In the construction of approximately 6 projects right now. We're adding to that this month. Currently under construction in 3 different states: New York, California, and there's multiple. We came into Illinois in late 2021 to start our campaign to develop sites here as well. And we are still in the process of working through permitting on the sites that we have secured in Lake County as well as other. We have now 20 sites that are under lease or have been in a purchase agreement that are working their way through the process. Operational projects, we have 18 projects in operation, 16 megawatts. We just finished an acquisition of 40 additional megawatts in Maine. So that's going to put us up over 100 megawatts of operating solar facilities throughout the country. Now our core values, these are just a few, but the most important thing to us is to work with the local jurisdictions, to work with landowners, to partner with these entities to bring solar projects to life in these communities. And we'll talk about what community solar is next. Now let me talk about how we select the site. A lot goes into how a site is selected. It's not a random process. We have to find obviously we have to find a site that's adequate, constructed. We do wetlands analysis early on to determine how much usable property there is for the purpose of installing the solar panel, how much production we can get out of those facilities is key as well. In the state of Illinois, our max output is 5 megawatts. Potential output is 5 megawatts AC. This particular project, because of the physical constraints, it's only going to be providing 2.85 megawatts, but still very helpful. When we're choosing a site, you know, I talked about wetlands. We also analyze critical habitat. The topography is going to play a role. The state of Illinois is obviously good for that reason. Relatively flat in most cases. Very little, if any, grading is necessary for these installations. A couple of the biggest items. One is the proximity to the grid. We have to tie into the distribution system or distribution grid of ComEd, or in the case of Southern Ohio, Central Ohio, is Ameren. We work with the IOUs and investor-owned utilities for this purpose. So we need to be in proximity to three-phase power in the area. That's where our point of interconnection is with the utility. Feedback to a substation that has to be relatively close as well. Because typically we are upgrading all of that infrastructure to get back to the substation on the upgrades that would be necessary at the substation as well. So all that plays a role in whether or not a site is acceptable. Now, obviously, we have to have a willing landowner to lease this or sell its property. A few technical aspects of siting and development. One of the biggest things we do on the front end is we reach out to emergency services, fire, to discuss physical parameters with respect to access. And in our design, we take that into consideration. Traffic. This is a very passive development, meaning there's very little activity that goes on once construction is complete. Maintenance, you may see maintenance personnel every couple of months, or whether it be landscaping requirements or maintenance of panels, cleaning of panels, those types of things. But it's very important. In a potential emergency businesses. So it's very passive in that regard as far as use of local infrastructure and the need for additional infrastructure is there is, you know, obviously in the construction process, there's going to be a little bit more truck volume, but once that's complete, generally speaking, it takes 6 to 9 months to complete a facility. To get it into operation. Doesn't mean the actual physical construction may be less than that, because there's other things inside the electrical piece to connect everything. And then health and safety. As far as studies that have been done over the years, there's no health impact caused by solar panels. There are very little, if any, impact to the environment, and all of the ingredients, I guess, by the term, found in a panel itself or a module can be found anywhere. So it's not the studies, EMF studies. What other studies would be pertinent to that? Yeah, that'd be the biggest one in noise pollution. There's very little noise that's created by these facilities. The noise would be created by the inverter, transformers. If you're with the facility, you may not. So that's how little decibel level there is involved with that. There's no light pollution. There will be no lights at the facility. In fact, at night, the facility shuts down. There's no use for the facility at night. So there's no noise from transport or from inverters at that time, and the tracking mechanisms go to the neutral position. So after the sun goes down, it turns into a very so that with that said, a couple more. Another topic that's brought up on a regular basis fairly is glare and the impact that the solar modules and the solar panels have. And the response is the solar panels are designed to absorb light, not reflect light. If they're reflecting light, then they're losing a tremendous amount of efficiency. And most of the modules that are manufactured today have a black, if you've seen them on rooftops, have a black membrane that basically absorbs it. The tracking, we talked about that briefly, and we can go into a little bit more with the design. The track, there's two types of solar farms, I guess. Ways of skinning the cat. One is utilizing the tracking mechanism. And that's what we do most of the time, unless we're forced to use a fixed array. But the tracking mechanism is solar panels are mounted on a tracking arm that is pile driven, supported by posts that are pile driven in the ground. That tracking arm has the module sits on the tracking mechanism. It turns ever so slightly to follow the sun's path. And what that does is it increases the efficiency of the facility as well. Minimizing shading. Noise, we talked about that briefly, and we were talking about 37 dB and 50 dB. It's like a refrigerator coming. That we run. Community solar, what it means to Antioch. Basically, what community solar is a concept that allows consumers or customers of utility to participate in the renewable energy arena, where people may not have the ability to financial ability to install solar panels on their homes, or maybe live in an apartment complex, or in an area that it's just too tight of an area to have ground mounted systems as well. So a community solar project or community solar concept is a larger area, like we're proposing, 21-acre area that will feed renewable energy into the grid of ComEd to be able to supply customers of ComEd in this general area with solar energy as an alternative to fossil fuel. Along with that, we'll also reap the benefits of having a local facility, and that is there's reduction in overall costs to the consumer as well. But you sign up for that with third party or with so the community concept, or the community solar concept, is one that it basically focuses on. We focus on those specific areas, those specific communities. We're looking to develop facilities near smaller towns that may not have easy access to solar energy on Earth. How does it work? This is generalization. This may not be exactly how Illinois. But basically, the utility will apply credits to the subscriber, and based on a share of the electricity produced by that solar project. So there's a certain amount of energy being produced, a certain amount of power being produced, and how much of that power is being shared amongst the community. So, and I mentioned it will reduce the And basically, who's eligible? All residents who live in Antioch, County. Anybody with comp head in their electric utility in this particular market. Local residents, businesses, government, everybody can directly participate and get benefits. So, so you're not investing in administration. Where does the electricity go? The energy that's generated by this solar facility stays within the local distribution grid. And that's why I wanted to make that clear before. So whatever's being produced by this facility stays within this grid. So you are going to be the people that are going to do it. The benefits, local access, locally sourced energy, electricity, the investment in the local distribution grid. As I said, we'll be upgrading the entire line from the facility back to the substation, along with upgrades to the substation, which will be a contribution to the construction period. Will create jobs, there will be economic investment in the area, and ultimately lower electric bills. I'm going to have Dave kind of touch on this. This is a lot of talk of what the Illinois Block Program or Illinois Shines is all about. That is the program that was passed by the state in 2018, I believe, where it allowed for, it gave enough benefits for a developer like ourselves who just solely focus on community solar projects to be able to develop these projects and fit within a financial model. So the state has helped us to achieve that goal. And basically, there's a lot of details about what it means to you folks and what it means to us. And they take a little bit just to give you a high level idea of what it's all about.
Yeah, sure. And good evening, David Stryker. Jim mentioned I'm counsel to the project, but I used to work for the state and have a lot of experience with this program. The adjustable block program that Jim mentioned specifically, it creates a number of procurement buckets, one of which is the community solar bucket that we're talking about tonight. And as Jim mentioned, it allows community members, whether it's municipalities, schools, local businesses, families, family farms, to subscribe to the project. And the procurement is run through the Illinois Power Agency, which manages the entire procurement portfolio for the ComEd service territory here and the MISO service territory, along with one other one, but ComEd would be the most important for us. And the way it set these procurements with the REC values, that stands for renewable energy credits. So there'll be two revenue streams for the project. One is physical power sales to the subscribers, and the second is that it's allowed to sell renewable energy credits. So for every hour or megawatt hour of renewable energy that's produced, we generate what's called a REC, or renewable energy credit. And selling that allows us a second revenue stream, the benefit to the local consumers that would be the subscribers to the project. As Jim mentioned, it would be typically below market prices that they're getting. And again, it's a great way for folks that don't want to put rooftop. I have a straight cedar roof on my house, but you couldn't put solar on. So to participate, you would need a project like this, or someone that doesn't want the expense, or frankly, more efficient model this way too. So this is again run through a state program. As Jim mentioned, it was first stood up in 2018. The Clean Energy Jobs Act, or CEJA, that you may have heard about, passed in September of 2001, and that enhanced a lot of the portfolio benefits, as Mike mentioned, or excuse me, as Jim mentioned. Now these portfolio can go up to 5 megawatts. It used to be capped at 2 megawatts, so this project would be 2.8, so it gets right out of that. Yeah. I'm happy to answer any further questions, but that's interesting.
We'll get into the details of the specific site. The site is located, as you said, as Jared mentioned, 650 East North Avenue is where we need to access the site from. The parcel itself is 51 acres. The project acres is approximately 21 and change, 22 acres project development. The generating capacity is 2.85 megawatts of AC power. The actual solar panel creates DC voltage, and that gets inverted in the facility to AC and gets sent to the grid. So it has a rating of 4 megawatts DC. Our land agreement with Green Holdings is a 35-year lease. The development process completed to date. We have site control, engineering design is underway, title commitment, and we have done wetland delineation to determine usable property. And as you can see from this quick map, there is wetlands to the east of the site that we had to avoid with the book. And that is all run through Lake County as well. Construction costs approximately $5 million plus. Projects finance. It's a combination of investors and lenders, tax credits, investors. So it's that piece is, to me, it's the most complicated piece, but it's the most important piece to make this. And renewable properties and Aaron and that executive team who have been doing this for a long time, that's what their primary focus is on creating that finance necessary to make that happen. Construction schedule, the site prep, as long as everything flows as we expect it to, there is a date of June of this year with respect to the next bucket release for the state of Illinois, the Adjustable Block Program. So we have to be permitted by that date to be eligible for that block.
I get the state requires all the discretionary permits to be in place for the project under the bid, so the SCP.
Right. So if that all goes as planned, if the interconnection piece goes as planned, which we've already done a lot of preliminary work there as well, so we know what we're up against cost-wise, and we're moving forward. So once those all are in line, then we'll NTP the site to our construction team. And if all goes well, third quarter of this year would not be an unreasonable expectation for breaking ground. Now, as actual construction, physical installation would probably wait until spring full of fall. So it would probably pull into the first beginning of second quarter next year. And that's best case. Best case. If all the moves. And the interconnection piece on that, that's a big part. I mean, relationship with the utility, working through their process. It's very cumbersome, costly, but we bulldog. We get in and we're relentless. So we make it happen. But that piece, they're evaluating it, which is important. It's absolutely necessary. A lot of engineering on their end as well, going into evaluating how it's going to impact the grid. Right? So we go through all that, and that usually takes from start to finish for pre-application to final feasibility study, anywhere from 1 to 2 years. So we've had that underway for quite some time, but there's still ways to go. Just some concept plan review points that Mr. Gary already touched upon in Arizona State. Solar development area is approximately 21.2 acres. Open space, wetland, and floodplain area, what I call the full parcel, is 51.34 acres to study. And basically the approval of the plan project path for us to move forward for this. Here's a blown out little view of where the parcel is in relation to the village. See that we're on the outskirts of the village. There's a little better view, larger view. Again, we have a larger depiction if you want to pass it around. But basically, it shows you the fencing surrounding the facility. The red dotted lines are setback requirements, whether it be from the wetland that was identified for the actual property line. We have identified a point of interconnection that's on west northeast. Along that road where we would access the facility. Each one of these is a row of solar modules. And each row is a truck. Okay. So if you can envision each individual column is a series of 6 by 3 foot solar modules lined up in a row that will basically tilt all the sun throughout the day. Now we show in our application, we say that it's 15 feet max height. It may not necessarily be 50 feet, that's the max that we ever go to. We try to keep it as low profile as possible. So the tracking mechanism may only 3 feet off of it. In some cases, they're 4 feet, depending on topography. So we want it to be as level, the tracking mechanism to be as level as possible. So there may be some change in elevation for the mounting pole. Now the mounting poles are pile driven into the ground. There's no footings necessary for each individual support column. There's a series of columns that will support each tracker. There'll be a motor on each tracker, or every so often there'll be a motor that are linked together to turn the tracking mechanism so that the solar panels will fill. Now, when I say 15 feet, now you just picture a solar panel on that tracker and it tilts maximum fill. Maximum tilt is going to be 15 feet. So it's going to start here and here, and it'll be 15 feet. But it may be less than that. We've taken it down to 7, 8 feet. So in a neutral position at night, touch on specific to the site. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's pretty much a block development. Property currently is being used for agricultural purposes. The remaining property will remain in that use if the owner chooses so. So there won't be any change to the original use of the property. We've left enough space so he can traverse to the west down to the lower portion of the property. Now, through working with and that's a good point too. We're not going to cut down. So the original design was kind of coming a little further south. We did have some tree disturbance. We chose not to do that. So we did reduce the overall output of the facility, but we thought that it was a better choice. I think that's in conclusion. We touched on the Illinois state energy goals. I heard 2050, 100%. Yeah, that would be the statement in the statute. The solar is a very low impact development. Very little or no impact on local infrastructure. No need for sewage, no need for water. 1 megawatt solar power, as Mr. Gary mentioned before, one megawatt will power upwards of 170 homes. In this particular case, 25 megawatts, potentially serving 5 around the moon. Solar is clean. It's going to be locally produced, form of electricity for you folks, and in the long run, less of it. Obtaining the SUP obviously would be our primary objective after answering all your questions. But it's also an opportunity for Antioch to join in the fight for renewable energy, fight to join in the progress associated with renewable energy reduction cost. So yeah, I'd like to open it up to questions. Any aspect, blue through what information. Anything jumps out at you.
Any questions? You're first.
Am I starting?
You're starting.
So, along with the application, we saw a number of other things. So I think the questions that I have more are about, how they're, and I know you told us, but how these are going to be mounted and drilled into the ground. Obviously, we saw an extensive report on a company out of Lombard that went out and analyzed, the property and the wetlands. And I know you said there was one wetland, but there were others that are emerging, right? Correct? Woodland. Yeah, on the site.
We have a delineation done.
Right.
You can speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, the one that we're avoiding the only high quality wetland.
Okay.
All the others.
The freshwater wetlands, and there were other emerging wetlands on the 50-acre parcel, right? Yeah. So, I guess my questions are how, and I know you spoke to this already, but how they're mounted, these racks in the ground, and how that's going to affect, the wetlands and the fresh water and all of those things. The other question I suppose I have is around the actual solar panels themselves, and, how are those recycled if they can't be repaired? What happens to those things?
No, that's fine. Those are great questions.
Yeah.
As far as the construction is concerned, and that's one of the things that is appealing about this type of development, as well as the amount of disturbed ground is minimal, because you're talking about mounting posts that are approximately 6 inches diameter, 6 by 6 squares, that are pile driven into the ground, and there's no hole being dug for them. They're being driven into the ground, and then those tracking systems are being mounted on top of it.
And they're like steel posts, or
yeah.
Okay.
But they're not something.
And how far down are they in the ground?
It depends on the soil analysis. So we'd still have to do that prior to construction, but typically it's in that 6-foot range.
Into the soil.
Into the soil.
Okay. I know also from listening that you mentioned that potentially in Illinois it could be up to a 5 megawatt site. So the other questions I think that probably not only myself, but the rest of the commissioners and anybody else who's going to speak to this might have, as we're looking at this, is why are we just developing, 20 or so of the acres, and what are the potential future use of the other 30 acres of the site?
Right.
So
I can't speak for the future, the use will remain the same.
Right.
So I
Right.
can't speak for the future use.
Yeah.
For the landowner.
Yeah.
Well, part of it, when we first identified that tree line
Yeah.
to the south, I think the thought was to make the project bigger and 5 megawatt level would have required the tree disturbance that you mentioned.
Right.
Which we didn't want.
Right.
So to leave that tree, not only is it great to leave trees, but they provide good screen as well.
Right.
That did confine the site to that. So I think to answer your question, is it possible to expand it? Yes, but that's probably a decision the board would have to make, whether
Yeah.
it wanted more disturbance in the
Yeah.
area or to leave the project. as
Right.
is. You also asked about water quality.
Yeah.
One of the things I think was hopefully going to be great about this is, Mike mentioned we're not going to talk about landscaping tonight, but
Right.
having done dozens and dozens of these, you almost always would put some sort of a native, deep-rooted plant system, or whether it's the IDOT mix or something else, usually pollinator friendly. But the deep-rooted plantings, and you want to touch it, generally is just a sort of layman's term, significant water quality improvements than you would get with the row crops that are there now. Wouldn't require any fertilizer. Generally, I think you would.
Yeah.
The drainage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so, since you brought up drainage, how did the panels drain? And does it just, what kind of drainage is built into the panels? And I think that was in our staff report, but I don't know that they talked about it. But
There's nothing built into the panels themselves.
it's just based on the rotation and
Right.
following. Okay. Yeah.
And the meadow that would be planted with natural plantings between the racking would do a much better job at absorbing that moisture than the current crops that are. Right?
Okay.
Hopefully, if you talk about highest and best use too, if the highest and best use in 35 years is agricultural, you're going to have a field that's live fallow and had native planting. Turn down the folks who need to be on.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. McCarty?
The current life expectancy for a photo panel is 30 years. After 30 years, it's expected to go back to its current use, or you renew your lease and reset.
If necessary. That would be the
Okay.
financial discussion.
Your buffer presently from the wetlands to the east is what in distance?
We require to stay 50 feet.
Okay.
This is 35, right? The land lease? 35?
Yeah, so it's 35. That's enough work. The lease is actually 20 years.
So the landowner's making the money on the lease for the time frame. You're making money, a portion of it from the use of the electricity, and a portion of the electricity savings and or income is and or could be distributed to homeowners, residential, business, and otherwise throughout the village of Antioch.
Well,
They would have to opt in.
Opt
They
in,
have to subscribe.
subscribe.
I think theoretically anybody in Northern Illinois
Savings.
could do it.
That would be your income is going towards savings
well,
on our current electric bills if we opted in.
and that's by the assistance of the adjustment block program, right, through the state.
Right, right. And what is your estimate of if everybody in Antioch opted in? What would it save their bill?
I wouldn't be able to tell you that right now because I don't have all that information like that. But I think I possibly get you some examples of sites that we have in place that typically it's a 10 to 15% is what.
Okay. This is currently placed to the northwest of Red Wing Slough, or a very sensitive area within our community and habitat that comes from, through, and around Antioch from the north all the way through to the south, migration path, so on and so forth. Do you have any studies showing how that will be affected with this being placed?
Yeah, we consulted with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, and we had our own biologist go out there to assess the area. She has over 25 years of experience working with natural resources in the area, and we both agreed that along with the DNR, that as long as no work is formed, I believe it was between April 1st and July 31st, which is the prime nesting season for the migratory bird species that are in that zoo. That there would be no adverse effect on the migratory bird species that use that area.
And where will it be applied?
So you would be working out there during what time frame?
We would either have to be finished with construction before April or pick it back up
After July. Okay. The fencing along the outside is what type of fencing? Chain link?
typically chain link, barbed wire.
Barbed wire. Okay. Height?
That's typical.
And height of the fence?
fence?
8 foot, 6 foot. Well, I think it's 6 foot if you do barbed wire, and you go up to 8 foot if you don't, for the National Electric Code.
Is there any security that we put in place on site to look at the site as it's in place, daily, monthly, whatever, cameras, yada, yada, yada?
I will have to get back to you on that. Yes, but I went back to the specifics.
Okay.
We do monitor the site. There's remote monitoring all pertinent parameters of the site. So,
All right, I've asked enough questions. I think renewables are great, but obviously placement, safety concerns, and the environment is, how it's going to affect everything around us. And with how close we are to the lakes and Red Wing Slough, those are things we just have to make sure we keep in check and balance. Pass it on.
Right. Ms. Cardensen.
Can you go back to the benefits slide, please? Okay, perfect. So you started to touch on the land, so I think it's important to know the history. Does anybody know what it was before it was agricultural? Okay. My thought was we degrade the land when we make it agricultural too, right? So I think it's important to understand the condition it's in now, before, and what this could do for it. You mentioned jobs during construction. What about jobs post-construction?
there's very little maintenance that is required. There will be more local maintenance team, but we contract that out. And I don't know if there's a specific. I think what I think under the Illinois Adjustable Block Program, there are, let's just say an Antioch electrical service company would apply to become a qualified person or entity, and they're listed up on the Illinois Power Agency's website. So people like or entities like renewable properties that need service would pull the service folks off that list. So they'll likely be fairly local, or at least Lake County, but anybody on that list could qualify.
Okay, so Michael, is that something that we can notify people about that are local to try and get them that work?
Yes, we can work with the applicant to, once we have more details to actually get the word out, whether it's through Facebook or through our website, that there's an opportunity for our local vendors who are electricians or whatever.
And I know Lake County Partners has been active in that.
Okay. Can you get more specific when you mentioned upgrade the grid? What are those exact benefits?
I mean, those won't change once the facility is gone. That upgrade to those facilities at substation, those feeder lines to the substation, which could be utilized for some use in the future.
See, there's one other benefit that's not mentioned, but right now I'm presuming the land is taxed as an agricultural property, which is typically your lowest tax rate, I'm guessing in Lake County. Once the project is installed and hits COD, a state statute kicks in that will assess the value of the property pursuant to a formula, which provides a significant tax boost. You know, one of the nice things about being in the incorporated boundaries of Antioch is Antioch will be a taxing district. The schools that your kids go to will all be taxing districts, along with whether it's local fire, sewer, and a library taxing districts. But the state statute allows us to get pretty close to the penny on what the tax revenue, the incremental tax revenue project. You know, we can do that.
Current taxes are $2,700.
On that.
Upgraded taxes would be about.
Well, we would have to run those numbers, but you grind it through a formula. So it's $218,000 per megawatt is where it starts. So this would be 2.85. It has an inflationary factor and a depreciation factor that's built in. But the good news for both developers and taxing districts is it's a formula, there's zero flex factor, so everybody knows.
That's not a taxable value.
Well, you don't get into a determination of, is this real property, is it personal? You know, it's not something you sit down with the assessor and fight about potentially. It's all classified as real property, and then it's assessed via formula. So the only thing that would fluctuate between a project in Lake County and a project in McHenry County would be once it's assessed, multiplied by the local mill rate. And that sometimes it changes for different parts of the project, you know, depending on what district it is, or if there's a special district that puts part of it.
Any additional benefits outside of financials? I'm thinking less brownouts, helping, I don't know, prevent power outages.
You know, one of the best parts about solar is that you're offsetting peak, which is your most expensive power. So, you know, especially if you're in Will County or Grundy and you're driving past all those peaker plants, those get turned on when it's 95 degrees in the middle of August. And that's your $1,000 an hour megawatt. This is when this solar project and others are producing the absolute most. So we call it peak shaving, but it's saving consumers the most expensive hourly electricity. And also typically, and again, I'm not an engineer, but when those peaker plants turn on, those are typically some of your more polluting assets too. So by not having to utilize that, again, you're helping the environment and you're saving.
Michael, engagement with the neighbors. Have we spoken with any of them?
Sorry?
Have we let any of the neighbors know about this?
No, they're obviously the next step is based on the input of the planning commission and ultimately the village board. If there's general support for it, and the applicant proceeds with special use, obviously there'll be due notice of all the properties within 250 feet, publication, posting a sign. So at that point, the neighbors will have an opportunity to have basically come to the public hearing and provide any express concerns they may have at the special use public hearing. Okay. Not quite there yet.
And then last question for you. Sorry. Any other Lake County communities that have this today?
I know obviously the Warren Township High School has probably a very similar facility, same size that the Warren that actually is on high school property. I'm not aware of any other facilities in around surrounding communities. Maybe you could speak to any other facilities that you worked with in Lake County. But I know if you have an opportunity to go down to Gages Lake Road, Warren Township has a very large solar farm as part of the high school property.
Thielens has one.
Oh yeah.
Thielens has one, but you can't see it from anywhere. Barely.
So that's in Wisconsin?
No, that's right here.
But how come they can have more than, is it, oh, it's
on
7
private
acres.
property.
7 acres, it's on their property.
Oh, I see. So it's not their private property. Okay.
Okay.
Hi. So a couple questions back to, I think Mr. Commissioner McCarthy said, you asked about recycling, I believe.
I think I did, and I'm not
Somebody
sure
did,
how it.
but I don't know that it got answered.
That's
so
right.
if the panel,
Yeah, that's okay.
so the panel's life expectancy is 30 years?
30 plus.
Okay. So,
And that is just efficiency. It's not that they're going to waste it at 30 years. You need to keep a certain efficiency rating to maintain the output that we have, which is approximately 85%. And once it gets below that threshold of efficiency, then it's time to turn it in. Now there's 3 phases to that one. We sell it to a private user of solar, and they can use that solar panel for their purpose, or any other public entity. The next phase will be to recycle. Recycling of solar panels is an industry that's in its infancy. Due to the fact that we're not at that end of life point in most cases. But there are facilities around that will do that. The actual module itself is made up of approximately 75% glass. And then framing materials and other wiring materials and so forth. So really the only waste would be a small percentage of, which is the membrane that's used for that, which again is made up of materials.
so you're then saying that the panel is 100%
I'm
recyclable?
not going to say 100.
Okay.
Not the members.
But a significant amount.
Like 90%? You
I
know?
don't have that.
Okay.
I could get that.
Okay. Just curious. And then you said the fence would either be 6 or 8 feet tall. Maybe if barbed wire is 6. If it's not barbed wire, it's 8. And it's typically cyclone fencing. So do you put any type of screening on it? Do you just use landscaping to cover it? What do you typically do on a project like this?
It's generally left to boards like yourself to tell us what makes most sense to you. Now, we would be willing to do either. I think a natural buffer is more appealing in the long run, but
That's all I had.
Mr. Turner.
So I'll start with saying I support renewable energy. I work with it on a daily basis. I would say I have a few questions about the design, but first I wanted just to quickly touch on if you could explain a little bit more the 2.8 megawatts that you are producing, how that works within our community. So it is, I think, somewhat not misleading, but some people could be watching this online and think like, oh, 500 people are going to get free power now. You know, so essentially when you guys are selling that back to the grid or selling to this program to the consumers, if Walmart signs up, there's not 499 more spots left. Right. You know, like, so can you talk about that a little bit, how that works?
Yeah, I could, to the best of my ability, I can talk about that. One, as far as the power staying local, you know, it'll follow the path of least resistance. So it's going on the grid here. And as long as there's demand in the Antioch area, it will peel off. Now, who is that going to? It's going to the customer service by ComEd. Our revenue stream could be to either the rec, which is just with the utilities, but what touches the local population would be the subscription agreements. So if there's 500 available subscribers and Walmart takes a big chunk of it, and that I couldn't tell you if there's going to be 400, you know, one spot left or 50. I have not heard of anybody putting parameters on the size of subscribers. I suppose that you could, but bigger institutions like the high schools, municipalities, the county itself, Walmart, hospital, you know, those could take large chunks of power. It still would be staying local, but there may be consumer protections to allow individual families to make sure that they can participate if they want to. I haven't had to address that.
Okay. From what I've seen, I would say do you think it's safe to say that this is more of a situation where as a home resident or a homeowner in Antioch, I can sign up for a program and I it's more of like feeling better that I am, purchasing renewable power than actually trying to, on the dotted line, say I'm saving X amount of dollars per month. Would that be fair?
You're talking about feeling better because I'm buying renewable power as opposed to fossil.
Yeah.
At least this is, again, me speaking personally. I think you're going a step beyond feeling better because by being a subscriber, you're allowing a project like this to go.
Yep.
Which again is going to offset fossil generation. So I would say it would go a step further than that. The savings that you get on your power bill, that's easy to monetize it.
Okay, I just want to be clear with, how this all transpires.
Right,
500 homes immediately don't have free power, right?
Well, would not be free. You have
That
to
would
subscribe.
be 10 or 15% savings,
Right,
correct?
right. That's
If they opt in, if they're able to opt in, and are they in Antioch, or they the owner of Walmart or the high school? This is what we're,
But I think, when you're talking about.
or are they
feeling
somewhere
better,
in Lake
yeah.
County?
Right. Yep. Exactly.
But that customer or subscriber would still be pulling power off the grid. It wouldn't be like this is a true rooftop system that you're putting power directly in the house.
Understood.
Right.
Okay.
But you don't have that investment either.
Another question about the height of the panels. So in my experience, like you could do a single panel tracker versus a double. You guys know what I'm speaking to in terms of the mounting, and that could potentially bring it down in terms of height.
Well, I think even a double we can break down. That 15-foot is a figure. I mean, we don't have it designed.
Okay.
We haven't got that. We wanted to get through this process first before we actually put the thing through it.
Yep. I mean, I get it. It all comes down to economics for you guys, right? I'm just trying to think out loud, single versus double. If the single's going to get it down where it's in more of that 6 to 10 foot range, and now you're underneath that fence, that's a little bit easier sell, right?
It's an easier sell, but I think you're reducing the output of the facility. Right?
Okay.
Because right now it's size.
Okay. Understood. So that there would just have to be an analysis there on what that would look like. Okay. I like to hear a lot about the ground cover scenario. That I think is I would like to see that, absolutely. So I was happy to hear that. And then the last thing we talked a lot about, I think every commissioner's brought up a piece about recycling and what happens at end of life. So I know that sometimes there's decommissioning bonds that are put in place here. Is that something that will be part of this project?
There will be with respect to the.
I can speak to that. There is a requirement in Illinois that the project signs up for what's called an agricultural impact mitigation agreement. That is between the project and the Illinois Department of Agriculture. The boilerplate's available on the web, and it's essentially an end-user contract. Every solar developer in the state signs up for the same terms. But the last paragraph, which is paragraph 17, that speaks to one project decommissioning requirements, and specifically it speaks to financial assurance. What it talks about, the decommissioning agreement is usually negotiated with the county, and the agreement talks about it being held by the county. Now, we're in an incorporated area here, so I've done 2 of these, one in the village of Pontiac and one in Tuscola. Typically, you'd have to make arrangements to have, if it's not going to be the county, and presumably it wouldn't have to be the village, but hold the financial security. But that again is something, right? If you were going to go to the SUP stage, that the AMA would require the negotiation of a decommissioning plan, which would include financial assurance.
Okay. Yeah, so I think just in general, like again, I fully support the renewables. I don't mind the location. I just want to make sure that these, in my opinion, these things would be all talked about and ironed out before we move forward. So I think that's all. Yeah.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. This is done through what you call the Illinois block program,
Adjustable block program.
adjustable block program like that. So how much funding is coming from the state to make this economically viable?
Well,
in other words, if there was no money coming in from the state and you're only selling electricity to ComEd at their current rates, is this project viable?
The funding is not coming directly from the state.
Okay.
What it's coming from is the state mandating to the 3 utilities in the state that they buy the power.
Okay, so let me rephrase my question.
There's governmental action, no doubt, but it's not necessarily government.
At the state or at the state level?
It's state statute that requires this.
Okay, so here, let me rephrase my question. Is what is the going rate right now for ComEd's price for electricity to the average consumer, homeowner? And what is your rate if just for your material costs, your installation costs and your costs, what is your rate would be?
I don't have that information for you right now.
Okay, can you get that for me?
We can get something.
I'm just trying to be interested in how much this is really costing the average person to fund a project like this.
It
is in a roundabout way.
Through the entire ComEd service territory.
Yes, yes. But these projects are not. But are these?
Gets passed along too.
Yeah, well, you know, Illinois is a deregulated state, so the generation severed now from the transmission.
The other question is, and you keep referring to fossil fuels. This reduces fossil fuels. Mm-hmm. How much is Commonwealth Edison's power generation in this area fossil fuel? Okay, so you've got a lot of nuclear in this area. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so when you say, so I'm just saying is when you use the word fossil fuel in an area that's almost all nuclear, I think you're being a little misleading. No, I'll tell you why I'm not. Okay. Because ComEd's just a wires company. Oh yeah, I know. It doesn't deliver. It doesn't generate. It just delivers. Yeah, excellent. So PJM, the market, PJM goes out and procures power and puts it in, which is the biggest electricity market in the country. Right. Here in Northern Illinois, you have 6 nuclear plants. Yep. PJM buys from Maryland, Pennsylvania, Ohio, heavy fossil states. Yeah, but their electricity never gets here. But that's what sets the market. It's a blended market. Yeah, but I'm just saying is. Okay, I'm not an expert on it either, but that. Okay. ComEd's delivering power. Right. Wherever it comes from. Okay. I'm just saying is the electricity that gets used by the customers here is not fossil generated. When the peaking plants are on, it's all gas. Northern Illinois is nuclear as far as base load. Yeah. What I was talking about, offsetting peak and peak shaving. Yeah. That is not base load. That is when your peaker plants come on, and they are primarily gas. If not all gas. Yeah, but that's a really small percentage of total power. It's the most expensive power, and those are heavily polluting assets. I don't disagree, but is my statement still correct? I don't know. Oops. Well, your statement was, where's ComEd getting its power from? No, my statement was it's a very small percentage of the power put out by the peaking units in this area. Probably for peaking it is. I don't know what the percent fossil mix is. But it's whatever you consider. Wow. It's very, very, very small. That's all. Okay, so you're going to get back to me on what is your cost without support for your generating electricity for this. That's right. So if you were just making this electricity and selling it per megawatt hour, however you want to make it, we can convert it.
KWH is the easiest thing for the consumer sees on their bill.
Yeah, you can convert it. It doesn't matter. Just decimal points. And then from the location you have, you said you had to go to the substation, closest substation, upgrade the transmission lines. How far is that from the spot that you have to where you're going?
I have that on that slide. I'm gonna have to get back to that too. It's probably within 3 miles is what our that's the first level of identification problems. Is within 3 miles radius. It's definitely within 3 miles. I don't know. Okay.
Okay. I have no more questions. We'll go back real quick around the group here. Any follow-up questions?
Well, is there anybody who is here tonight that has any comment or no, we're not.
If I may, Mr. Chair, we have, obviously we all got to talk one at a time and we do have a public comment section.
Okay.
So we really don't call people up like that, unless it's from the petitioner, which I don't think it is.
Oh, okay.
And I think the petitioner's got a list of questions they got to get back to us on.
Right.
So we're probably not.
Okay. So we're still with the commissioners. So I think I asked most of the questions that I had. I know you mentioned 13 states. Are there other Midwestern states like that this project has gotten off the ground? And
Ohio, we're just starting.
okay. And how many sites in Ohio?
Four. We just started.
Okay.
Most of our work is obviously in California. We have sites that have been permitted of construction in Mexico, New York, state of New York. We have several operations in the state of New York. And then we purchased facilities in Maine. And we have facilities under construction in South Carolina.
Okay. But Ohio would be like
The closest.
okay. I don't know if anybody else has any numbers.
And Minnesota.
That started construction.
Just obviously this is just for a show of support. Obviously it has intrigue and I'm supportive of renewable energies, but maybe have some more background of your other facilities, like some pictures of existing, what they've done for landscaping, for shielding it from, this is going to be right on North Avenue. People are going to be passing it every day. And again, just concerned about Red Wing Slough and the environment for that area. And what would be affect a little more of a report in nature to know time frame and why, and when you should and shouldn't be doing construction there.
Any additional questions?
No. I don't have any.
Mr. Turner.
Just have one last comment. Just thought this is more for Michael. Michael, I just think that this is going to continue to be a hot topic, through as the state has bought into solar, and this is going to continue to come in front of us. I think it might be a good time to visit potentially a solar ordinance, for the town, because these gentlemen have come in front of us and, we can definitely, they're the experts, the glare requirements, the noise requirements, the height of the fence and all these things, but maybe more or less just like what the village of Antioch potentially would want for those requirements. And then it's a roadmap for these guys. They know exactly what to do before they come in front of us. Absolutely. So just a thought.
I know you said you were working with the Illinois DNR, but has the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers been brought in?
They
and consulted.
That's not a.
Oh, it's not. Just Lake County and Illinois DNR. Okay.
Yeah, the anytime Army Corps of Engineers gets involved, when we get too close to wetlands and
wetlands, which is why I was asking the question. There's some wetlands right there on the property and real nearby. So
3 and 5 years. That's what that would do.
Okay. So
Yeah, I don't think we had public comment before, so we have to do public comment.
Okay. Anybody out in the public here with anything they want to come up and say, comments or anything? Okay.
Well, thank you. I think we have pretty good feedback. And with that, we'll probably move this onto the village board, and potentially you'll probably be seeing this case as a special use public hearing within the next month and a half, 2 months.
Okay. I get a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
second.
Roll call.
I'm sorry, we do need a continuance formally. We need a formal continuance of the cannabis case.
Motion to continue
PZB.
PZB 2208
to the February Planning Commission.
to February Planning Commission.
I'll second.
And
Second. Okay. Roll call.
Ryan,
Yes.
Sanfilippo,
Yes.
Hardy,
Yes.
Carstensen. Yes. Madigan. Yes. Turner.
Yes.
Okay. Now, would we like to close the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Ryan.
Yes.
Sanfilippo.
Yes.
Hardy.
Yes.
Carstensen. Yes. Madigan.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Just wanted to comment on the gamble.